Imagine this. You wake up in a room with no doors. The walls are blank, the air thick with silence. At first, you assume it's a dream, but the cold floor beneath your feet feels too real. Then, a voice echoes from nowhere. You've been here before. A screen flickers to life. It shows your life, every memory, every choice, every face you've ever known. But something's off. The scenes replay in loops, the dialogue slightly altered each time. A creeping realization hits. What if none of it was ever real? What if every thought you've ever had, every emotion you've ever felt, was just programmed? This isn't science fiction. This is the silent question, lurking beneath your daily routines. Are you living in a matrix of your own making? Most people never ask. They press snooze, scroll feeds, chase promotions, and nod along to societal scripts, never questioning why they want what they want. But here's the paradox. The more certain you are that you're free, the more likely you're trapped. Think about it. Why do you crave things that leave you empty? Why do you fear judgments from people you don't respect? Why does success feel like a treadmill you can't step off? You've been taught to blame yourself. If I just hustle harder, think smarter, want less. But what if the game itself is rigged? What if the real prison isn't lack of effort, but an invisible architecture of beliefs you never consented to? History's greatest minds have whispered this truth for centuries. Plato warned of shadows in a cave. The Gnostics spoke of a demiurge crafting a false world. Nietzsche declared, "You must become who you are," implying most never do. Yet here we are, drowning in digital dopamine, political theater, and manufactured crises, too distracted to notice the bars around us. But there's a way out, and it starts with a single terrifying question. What if you're not who you think you are? You don't see the bars because they're made of thought. The matrix isn't a grid of falling green code. It's the invisible lattice of conditioning that shapes your desires, fears, and even your sense of self. Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious, the inherited myths, symbols, and fears that whisper beneath your decisions. Friedrich Nietzsche saw it as herd morality, the unexamined rules that turn individuals into obedient echoes. But the most unsettling insight comes from Jean-Paul Sartre. We are our choices. And yet, how many of your choices are truly yours? The birth of the false self. From the moment you were born, you were handed a script. Language taught you how to label the world, but also how to limit it. Education trained you to solve problems, but not to question whether they were worth solving. Culture gave you an identity, but one built on comparison, scarcity, and borrowed dreams. By the time you reached adulthood, you weren't a person. You were a construct, a patchwork of expectations. You learned to crave validation, fear rejection, and chase goals you never consciously chose. Even your rebellions were prepackaged. The tattoo, the startup, the minimalist lifestyle, all variations of the same consumerist algorithm. Arthur Schopenhauer saw this clearly. A man can do what he wants, but not want what he wants. The illusion of autonomy. Modern society perfected the illusion of freedom. You're allowed to choose, but only from curated options. Politics, left or right, but never outside the system. Spirituality. Religions and self-help gurus selling pre-made enlightenment. Desire. Advertisements implant cravings before you feel them. Aldous Huxley predicted this in Brave New World, not through force, but through pleasure, distraction, and the myth of individualism. You feel free because you're drowning in options. But true freedom isn't choosing between A and B. It's realizing you never agreed to the test in the first place. The psychological lock. Your brain is wired to conform. Cognitive biases like confirmation bias, seeking what already fits your worldview. Social proof, assuming the crowd must be right. The sunk cost fallacy, clinging to a path because you've already invested, all keep you trapped. Viktor Frankl, who survived Auschwitz, wrote that, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose. But what if you've been trained to skip that space entirely? This is the hidden problem. You were born into a story you didn't write. The Matrix isn't out there. It's the internalized fiction of who you're supposed to be. But there's a crack in the system, and through it, a question burns. What if you stopped believing your own thoughts? You don't notice the walls closing in until you're gasping for air. The Matrix doesn't announce itself with glitches or agents in black suits. It operates in the quiet erosion of your spirit, the slow-motion surrender of curiosity to routine, of passion to practicality, of selfhood to the algorithm of normal. But the consequences are everywhere, once you learn to see them. The hollowing out of meaning. You were promised fulfillment if you followed the script. Work hard, buy more, climb higher. Yet the higher you climb, the emptier it feels. The promotion that was supposed to validate you only brings longer hours. The possessions you thought would bring joy become burdens to maintain. The relationships you expected to complete, you turn into performances. This isn't an accident. It's by design. A system built on infinite growth requires infinite dissatisfaction. Viktor Frankl warned, an abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is normal behavior. And what could be more abnormal than a world where loneliness, anxiety, and burnout are statistical norms? The manufactured social media didn't just change how you communicate. It rewired your sense of being. Your worth is now measured in engagement metrics. Your memories are outsourced to cloud storage. Your identity is a curated avatar, polished for maximum appeal. Neurologically, you're caught in a dopamine loop. Post. Wait for validation. Repeat. The French philosopher Baudrillard saw this coming. A world where the simulacrum precedes the real, where the map replaces the territory. You no longer experience life. You document it for an audience that doesn't exist. The Stockholm Syndrome of the soul. The most insidious consequence? You defend your own captivity. Call out consumerism, and someone will sneer. You have to play the game. Question marriage, mortgages, or the 9-to-5, and you're labeled unrealistic. Express existential doubt, and you're handed a pill, a platitude, or a new productivity hack. This is the genius of the Matrix. It convinces you that resistance is delusion. Like prisoners sculpting their own chains, you've internalized the idea that this is just how life is. But history's rebels, from Socrates to Steve Jobs, prove otherwise. Their crime, seeing the cracks in consensus reality. The ticking clock. Every day you spend inside the illusion is a trade. Your aliveness for comfort. Your truth for belonging. The German poet Rilke wrote, "You must change your life. Not you should, you must. Because the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to distinguish your desires from the ones implanted in you." The escape begins with one brutal admission. You are complicit in your own imprisonment. The exit door exists, but it's labeled "Danger, do not enter." Breaking free isn't about moving to a cabin in the woods or smashing the system in some grand gesture. True rebellion happens in the mind first. It begins when you stop asking, "How do I succeed within this game?" and start demanding, "Who decided these were the rules?" The first act of defiance, cognitive disobedience. Every oppressive system relies on one weapon, your belief in its inevitability. Shatter that, and the walls begin to crumble. Question your reflexes. When you feel envy, ask, "Do I truly want this, or was I trained to?" Interrogate your fears. Social rejection, financial instability. Are these genuine threats or ghosts implanted by a system that profits from your compliance? Practice thought crimes. Entertain ideas that would make others uncomfortable. What if monogamy is unnatural for some? What if careers are just institutionalized distraction? This is what Nietzsche meant by philosophizing with a hammer, testing every belief to see if it rings hollow. Reclaiming your attention. The modern-day holy war. Your focus is the most valuable commodity in the 21st century. Every app, news outlet, and advertisement is engineered to steal it. Go on a data fast. For 1 week, consume nothing but books written before 1950. Notice how your mind recalibrates. Create white space in your day. No podcasts during commutes. No scrolling while eating. Let boredom return. It's the birthplace of original thought. Curate your inputs like your life depends on it, because it does. As Terence McKenna warned, culture is never your friend. The power of negative capability. The poet John Keats praised being in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts, without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. This is the antithesis of our quick-fix culture. Stop seeking answers. The matrix survives by keeping you addicted to solutions. Learn to dwell in the discomfort of not knowing. Embrace paradox. You can want financial success and see money as imaginary. You can love someone and recognize all love is projection. Destroy your personal brand. Authenticity isn't consistency. It's the courage to contradict yourself. Finding your red pill. Moment history's freest minds share one trait, a point of no return. For Descartes, it was, I think, therefore I am. The realization that even deception proves existence. For Buddha, it was leaving the palace to confront suffering. For you, it might be the moment you realize no one is coming to save you. No guru, politician, or algorithm will give you permission to be free. This isn't despair, it's liberation. As Jung wrote, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. The rebellion starts small. Delete an app that numbs you. Have a conversation without performing. Spend one entire day doing only what you consider meaningful. Each act is a brick removed from the prison wall. The light is getting in. Now comes the hardest truth of all. Here is the secret no guru will tell you. There is no matrix, not in the way you imagined. The bars were never physical. The prison was never out there. The entire construct, the jobs, the status games, the curated identities, was just a collective hallucination, a story humanity convinced itself was real. Like children who forget they're playing a game, we gave our power to illusions. But the most terrifying, exhilarating truth is this. You were never trapped. You were asleep. And now you're waking up. The grand illusion of separation. All suffering stems from one mistake, believing you are inside a system rather than the source of it. The 9-to-5 grind, a ritualized agreement, social media anxiety, a mass hallucination of importance, even money, just paper we all pretend has value. When Sartre wrote, "Hell is other people," he missed the corollary. So is heaven. Reality is consensus, and consensus can be broken. The cosmic joke. Consider this. You spent years seeking escape, when the exit strategy was always the same. Stop believing in the walls. The mystics knew. Zen masters called it Satori, the thunderclap of seeing through the dream. Quantum physics hints at it. Observer-dependent reality. Even Morpheus offered the choice. Take the red pill. But the punchline? You were the architect all along. Every limitation, every rule you thought bound you, was maintained by one thing: your continued participation. the final door. Now comes the ultimate test. Knowing all this, will you retreat into comfortable lies, rage against illusions like a prisoner shaking phantom bars, or transcend the game entirely, not through resistance, but through sovereign indifference? The third path is the revolution. It looks like working a job without identifying with it, playing social roles without being owned by them, using money without worshiping it. This is what Krishnamurti meant by the highest form of intelligence is observing without evaluating, the unbearable lightness. With great freedom comes great vertigo. There will be days you'll miss the prison, the certainty of scripts, the comfort of measurable success, the anesthesia of belonging. This is when most go back. But for those who stay, who endure the dizzying freedom, something extraordinary happens. You become ungovernable, not in the activist sense, but in the cosmic one. You operate by deeper laws. Synchronicities multiply. The universe becomes less a prison and more a dance partner. As Nietzsche prophesied, one must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. The last words. We opened with a room with no doors. Now you know. The door was never the exit. It was your perception. The man who escaped the matrix isn't the one who fought it. He's the one who realized there was never anything to escape from, only something to awaken to. So I leave you with the only question that matters. Now that you know, what will you pretend not to know tomorrow?